Hello again, listeners, and welcome to another impromptu episode of the Deercast. Today, we are having a bit of a brief review of the Stalking Show. We gave a very sort of quick little rundown video of it when we were there. We thought it would be worth just having a bit of a sort of more in-depth chat about it. Now that we've had a couple of days to think about it, what our feelings were, what we liked, what we didn't like, what was good, what was bad, etc. So to kick us off, I think we need to talk a little bit about just the sort of general housekeeping bits and bobs and how it kind of ran as a show. And I think me and Tom both agree, and I think everyone was in consensus, that the location and the parking were absolutely fantastic, compared to something like the shooting show where it's like 20 quid to park, or the game fair where you have to queue for hours to get in.
I've got to say, I was expecting the Stalking Show to be similar to that, and it was a massive relief. When I suppose it's the benefit of doing something at a purpose-built venue or showground like that, is that all the facilities and infrastructure are just there, and it is just slick. So literally car parking, you pulled in off the main road and you're basically in the car park, and that's it. And the car parking set up with good arterial roads and all the rest of it. Whereas I mean, sorry, Game Fair, but the car parking is terrible every time I've ever been, and it puts me off going when you know you're going to spend at least an hour just queuing to get in. So that was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and free as well, which is a big ask. Like, I mean, to be fair to the Game Fair, obviously they've got a massive audience, so they have to deal with a huge, and they do it in sort of country houses usually, so they don't have the same. It's not set up like you say. Yeah. It's not a purpose-built place usually. It's not like in the NEC or the Staffordshire Showground or whatever. So that's, to be fair, might be an unfair comment on the Game Fair's part, but it just all seemed like, you know, from first impressions of the place, when you go to a show, the first thing you do is you turn up and you park, and if that's a chore and it costs you loads of money, it kind of sours the entire experience, just for me anyway. And like, when you're going there and when you're going back, you're kind of reflecting on it. And so I think if you sort the parking out for a show, you're kind of halfway there, because people will be, you know, really receptive to whatever you get there and see. Yeah,
and I think that comment sort of then plays through with other parts of the Stalking Show as well. Again, using a purpose-built venue, it meant toilets. I mean, absolutely fab. You weren't using a kind of really rank, horrible portaloo that didn't run out of bog roll and was overflowing and bits and pieces like that, which you do get at some other shows. I mean, that was fantastic. It was undercover, so again, I mean, the weather actually was beautiful, but I mean, had it been crappy, then it would have been great because you'd been indoors. Yeah. There was plenty of space for exhibitors. There was sort of cafe facilities on site as well, and as well as that, some really good food stands as well, weren't there?
Yeah, to be fair, there was a good amount there. They had Winston Churchill venison there. They just doing some lovely stuff. They had a company called, was it Wild or Dirty or something? What was it? What was the burger thing called?
Yeah, we each had a Game Changer venison burger, and they were genuinely game changing. I can't remember the name of the stand, but
we'll have to put it in the description.
They were awesome.
They were really good, actually. One of the best venison burgers we've had. And actually, Justin Carter, who was on the last podcast episode, said that was the best venison burger he's ever had. Yeah. Which, coming from him, who does a lot of butchery, is actually a big
that is quite a big testament.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, from that side, everything seemed to work really slickly. A couple of downsides, I don't think they didn't have anyone doing like coffee and teas and stuff like that, really. They have like a cafe, but it was really, really slow. So if you want to get a cup of coffee, like, you know, to be like half an hour, which is a bit annoying. Like, I feel like they could have had like a little coffee stand, someone making like cappuccinos. That would have been quite nice for people who like that kind of thing. Other downsides, I don't think they paid for enough electric or Wi-Fi. I think the organisers were probably underestimating how popular it was going to be. So I was chatting to some of the food guys, and they couldn't run as many tea kettles and things like that as they wanted to. And on the first day, some people had some problems with the Wi-Fi, especially card machines and things. So I think there were a couple of people who couldn't pay for things on the first day, which, you know, isn't great, but these are sort of the kind of teething problems I suppose you expect from a new show.
And I guess, in fairness to both show and probably some of the stands, because I think some of the stands were slightly guilty of not bringing enough stock, I guess when it's a first attempt at something like this, you've no idea how popular it's going to be. So you probably, in fairness, don't want to invest a huge amount of money in it up front until you know whether it's going to be a success or not. I suppose the flip side to that is you've got to invest money in it to make something like that good. And I think they probably hit the balance about right, possibly. So yeah, but talking of sort of positives, both Harry and I, sort of when we were talking about doing this, we were saying, right, okay, each of us talk about our sort of two positives or best things we saw whilst we were there at the show. Do you want to kick us off with your first two, Harry, or your first one? I'll do one, and then backwards and forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one, which we did put in the video, that I think is really exciting because it's a massive question mark over, on caliber, 243 non-toxic 100 grain deer legal round from Edinburgh Rifles. I think it's called a Peregrine. That is going to be an absolute game changer if it works. We're going to get probably 50 rounds or so and test them on roe and on fallow over the next, try and do it over the next sort of 6 months, do a really good test, and just see how they sort of play out in the field. But that, I think, was really exciting because obviously 243 is not only one of the most popular calibers in the UK, it's just a fantastic caliber all round. And so, people sort of saying that it's going to be the demise of it with copper, that would be a massive shame in my view. So having that really gives me some sort of hope that people can keep using 243 even with non-toxic ammunition. So we've got a couple of boxes from Edinburgh Rifles, so thank you very much to them for helping with that, and we're going to give them a test, and we'll bring you guys along for the ride and kind of keep you up to date and let you know how we get on.
Whilst we can, big shout out to Edinburgh Rifles, because not only has he been very kind to us on that front, but he is just a really knowledgeable, useful guy to tap up for free information, basically. I mean, I bought some Fox bullets from him years ago when I was sort of first looking at the whole copper transition, and I sent him a message and said, look, what are they like? And I was looking to reload them myself, so I was like, what sort of load data is out there for it? And basically he sent me a load of stuff from Quick Load and was like, here you go, this is what you need, I've used them in my rifles, blah blah blah. Talked really knowledgeably, was happy to pick up the phone and just generally have a bit of a chat about them. So big shout out to him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and I mean he is so knowledgeable. He did a brief, I say brief, I think it was fairly lengthy actually, talk about calibers and sort of non-toxic and things like that. He did a bit of a presentation, and he's just so knowledgeable. And you kind of get the impression when you talk to him that they've developed these bullets from a sort of Deerstalker's perspective, not like a big manufacturer. Like, he's really honest about like the load data. He's like, what you get on the box sort of feet per second wise is exactly what you get from like a stalking rifle, whereas like a lot of the manufacturers, they kind of try and amp up their stats in order to try and sell bullets. I think if you buy a box of bullets off him, it does kind of what it says on the tin, but we're gonna test it and see how they go. So that was really exciting. The other thing that I thought was really good to see there was Blaser and sort of Sour UK. There they had some interesting new products. I'm quite biased because I have a Sour rifle, and I bought some new Blaser Shooting Sticks from them.
Didn't take a lot of persuasion either, did it?
No,
you were straight in there.
I did have one beer.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it only takes me one beer to buy a pair of quite expensive shooting sticks, then it doesn't really bode well for the future. We talked a bit about them in our video as well, so if you haven't seen that, go and check that out. But that's another thing I'm going to be testing out over the next sort of 6 months. I'll give you like a sort of 6 months in review of them, and we'll kind of probably compare them to Viperflex as well. So just to go over what we did in the video, they are a carbon fibre set of shooting sticks. They're about 280-90 quid retail, which is actually pretty much on par with the Viperflex ones, but they've got a sort of pivoting front section, so you can kind of pan. You get kind of 30 degrees pan, which is really exciting. But anyway, we'll bring you some more bits on that at a later date. So Tom, what are your top two?
So my top two, the first one is I should say neither Harry or I currently use thermal, partly out of cost, partly a sort of a little bit of reluctance to kind of go down that route, because I think partly for me it ruins some of the potential joy of stalking, but I think I'm starting to realise that in some ways they're a necessity for getting numbers on the ground, but also in terms of following up on dead, wounded stuff. I mean, it will be game changing in that respect. Tom at Thomas Jacks was really, really kind, sort of took us both onto the stand and was sort of talking us through all the different Pulsar models they've got. And actually, I was quite surprised. So we looked at two, the XQ35 and the XM30F. Both of them are quite sort of small units in terms of probably sort of dimensions-wise, the length of an iPhone, width of an iPhone, but sort of obviously a bit chunkier. And actually the detection ranges on both of them is amazing in terms of distance wise, and actually I could see us potentially using them out in the field for what we do, and not sort of massively expensive either.
No, very reasonable really compared to what they used to cost.
Yeah.
And for someone like Pulsar, who's such a premium brand in the sort of thermal world, and like you say, they're kind of like the size of a little handy cam, aren't you?
Yeah.
And you kind of think, well, you look at them on the website and you think, oh, well, that's not really going to do the job of like, you know, the bigger, more sort of traditional looking spotters. But actually, looking at the stats and what people we know use, they're actually really good.
Yeah, I was really, really surprised. So I think, again, so it sounds like we're going to be pretty busy over the next couple of months, but I think we're going to get a couple of those out to test and have a look at, and one of us will probably end up making the plunge and purchasing one of those, I suspect. So that was my number one. Number two, bit of a kind of general one, but Harry and I had a look on the Deer Central stand, and super helpful guy, Ben, I think there, isn't it? Yep. So I've slightly bent some Viperflex sticks I bought from him years ago, and he said, look, send them back, we'll send them off to Viperflex and get them sorted out for you free of charge. I think Harry ended up buying a rowing knife from him. I ended up buying a sort of comb razor pouch type thing. Looks a little bit tactical, but does the job in terms of sort of raising eye alignment on my rifle for me. Very reasonably priced, and just sort of good quality, good kit from him really, and again, really knowledgeable, nice guy to talk to. So that's probably my number two, I'd say.
Yeah. They're a good outfit. I mean, it's like they've picked the best stuff from the stalking world and kind of put it all in one place, and it's kind of like a one-stop shop for, like, you know, usable stalking gear, like not optics and rifles obviously, but like stuff that facilitates stalking, like sticks and butchery gear. They do a really good set of knives that Justin Carter actually uses. I think it's 75 quid for like a number of knives in a scabbard with a sharpener, like really good value. And yeah, everything they do seems to be really good stuff. Yeah,
and you sort of get the impression with him that you're going to get the customer service to go with it. So if you bought something and it was garbage or it broke or something like that, and you contacted him, he just sort of strikes me as the sort of person that would want to sort it out and get it all okay for you, which is really, really nice. And that's probably the only other comment I'd have about the Stalking Show, was that it felt like a kind of collaborative show in terms of everyone was there, wanted to help each other, work together, and sort of just, I don't know, teach each other in a non sort of patronising way, and just generally socialise and have fun. It wasn't like a lot of other shows that you go to and you either feel like an imposter or there's some stands that have got sort of, I don't know, members areas on them and they don't let other people in and it all feels a bit hoity-toity. It was just a really nice kind of down-to-earth,
there was a good feeling, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was.
And in the deer stalking world, you know, we're all probably a bit guilty of being a bit maybe sort of insular and kind of inward looking, and not kind of, you know, kind of keeping everything to yourself and kind of making sure you're not sharing things, and kind of it's not maybe it's not that collaborative, but that kind of, it was just so nice and friendly. And, you know, I think everyone we spoke to really had very similar feedback. It was all broadly very positive. So I think, you know, hats off to the Stalking Show team, David Freer, who I know is instrumental with his business partner in organising it, and all the other guys from up in Argyll. You know, hats off to you guys, because it was, you know, for a first go to show like that, really successful. So I for one, and I think everyone else really hopes that they do it again.
I will definitely be going back.
Yeah,
it was very good.
And you know, I think there's definitely potential for expansion. There's space there for more stands, and I think the few people that we did speak to about coming back next year, they all said we'd probably do a bit of a bigger stand maybe, or and you know, this was a sort of test event maybe, and hopefully more people will start coming along, and it can be a sort of annual thing. But it's really good.
Well, there you go. On that happy note, if you guys didn't go to the Stalking Show this year, make sure you definitely go next year. For those of you that did go this year, and those of you that we saw there this year, please come back next year. Hope to see you there, and I'm sure it'll be a good one. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Please like, comment, subscribe, all the rest of it. That keeps us going, so anything you can do to help us would be much appreciated.
Definitely. And we've got some exciting new guests coming up. Not sure when they're going to be released, because as usual we're quite haphazard, but we've got some really interesting people in mind to do podcasts with, and it's all coming up, so do stay tuned for what comes next. But thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.